The helmet in the red dust. The Martian winds howled across the barren plains as Commander Ilara Voss made her way over the rust-colored dunes, her boots sinking into the soft dust with every step. The horizon stretched endless in all directions, painted in hues of crimson and gold by the distant sun. Her mission was simple survey, the old coordinates flagged decades ago by forgotten satellites, but as always, Mars had its way of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. Her suit sensors ticked softly in her ear. Oxygen steady, pressure steady, everything normal except her instincts told her something was waiting. She paused near a jagged outcrop, half buried by sandstorms that had raged for centuries. As she brushed away the layers of dust, her gloved fingers touched metal. Not alien but human crafted. She knelt down and unearthed a cracked helmet. Its visor shattered, its surface scorched, as if it had survived both fire and time. Her breath caught inside the helmet was a small compartment cleverly sealed, perhaps overlooked by the storm. She twisted the latch and it opened with a hiss of stale air. Inside, folded carefully, was a strip of paper, fragile and yellowed. Her hands trembled as she pulled it free, and under the Martian sunlight she read words scratched in uneven lines. "Find me, I'm alive." Ilara's heart pounded. She stared at the helmet again, looking for a name tag. The paint was nearly gone, but she could just make out faint letters. The name was not in her database, not in any record of human missions to Mars. Officially, she was the first of her generation to set foot here, yet this helmet said otherwise. If someone had written this note, it meant either a cruel trick or a miracle. No one should have survived long enough to leave such a message. She carried the helmet back to her rover, placing it carefully in the sealed compartment. The silence inside the cabin was heavy, broken only by the hum of the life support system. She unfolded the note again, staring at the words, "Find me, I'm alive." The strokes were desperate, not written by a machine but by a human hand. Ilara's thoughts raced. Decades ago, there had been rumors of experimental missions of colonists sent without proper sanction. The official archives claimed those missions failed with all lives lost. But what if the truth had been hidden? What if someone had endured on this harsh planet unnoticed, forgotten by history? She uploaded scans of the helmet into her onboard computer. The AI flagged anomalies in the alloy structure. It was older than her equipment by at least 50 years. Her pulse quickened. This was no fabrication. This was real. She checked the map of her sector. The note had no coordinates, but the helmet had been found at the edge of a canyon stretching deeper into uncharted terrain. Outside the window, the Martian dusk fell slowly, shadows lengthening across the sand. Ilara could not shake the feeling that someone was watching. Perhaps it was only nerves. Perhaps the thin atmosphere played tricks on her eyes. Still, she tightened her grip on the rover controls and set a course toward the canyon. She would not leave this mystery buried. If a human life had once clung to existence here, then that story had to be found. The rover rumbled across the plane's engines, straining against the climb. As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, she felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Every discovery on Mars was meant to be catalogued and studied for the advancement of Earth. But this was different. This was personal. This was a plea from the past echoing across time. "Find me. I'm alive." She reached the canyon edge, peering down into its depths. Shadows pooled like ink, hiding whatever secrets lay below. Her sensors flickered as if disrupted by something unnatural. For the first time in years of training and discipline, Ilara felt fear not for herself, but for what she might uncover. The helmet sat beside her, the cracked visor reflecting the faint light of her cabin. It was more than metal. It was a beacon, a whisper of survival and of humanity's stubborn refusal to die, even on a world that wanted them gone. Ilara whispered softly to herself, almost like a vow. "Whoever you are, I will find you." Whispers. Beneath the sand, the Martian night wrapped itself around Ilara's rover like a cloak of silence, only broken by the low hum of the engines and the occasional rattle of dust against the hull. She sat at the controls, staring at the canyon below. The note was folded in her pocket, the helmet resting near her side. Her mind replayed the words over and over. Find me. I'm alive. They were impossible words, yet they demanded belief, and every instinct in her told her that turning away would be a betrayal of something greater than her mission. She powered down the rover and activated the ground scanners. Faint traces of energy flickered on the display. Erratic signals scattered across the canyon floor. They were not geological patterns, and they were too weak to be natural magnetic distortions. Something was hidden there. Something trying not to be found. She adjusted the sensors, fine-tuning them, and caught the faintest pulse repeating slowly as though it had been running for years without maintenance. Her training told her to call mission control to report anomalies, but her heart told her otherwise. If she sent this back to Earth, Command would bury it, just as they buried the first colony rumors. She could not allow the truth to vanish again. She strapped her helmet back on, checked her oxygen supply, and descended into the canyon. The air was colder here, shadows clinging to the jagged walls like living things. Her boots crunched against loose gravel, each sound echoing far longer than it should have. She felt small beneath the towering cliffs, a lone human walking into the unknown. Yet the pull of that weak signal drove her forward, step by step, past rocks, stained with centuries of iron dust, past cracks in the stone that whispered with the wind. Her suit sensors picked up fluctuations in the atmosphere, faint traces of combustion residue mixed with something organic. As she followed the trail, her lights caught the remains of an old campsite. Blackened, stones formed the outline of a fire pit, long cold but unmistakably human. Empty ration containers lay scattered half-buried in the sand. Their logos were faded, but she recognized the design: Earth Military Surplus. The official history claimed such. Supplies had never left orbit yet. Here they were, proof that humans had lived and fought to live in this canyon. She crouched to examine one container, her glove brushing away dust, when her comms suddenly crackled with static. Her heart jumped. She froze, listening. A faint sound filtered through the interference, not random noise, but something deliberate. A voice, low and broken, carried by frequencies her system struggled to interpret. The words were impossible to make out, but the tone was unmistakably human. Alara's breath fogged her visor as she whispered into the comm. "This is Commander Alara Voss of the Earth Expedition. Identify yourself." The static swelled, then faded. No reply came. She waited, scanning the cliffs above, but the silence returned. She shook her head, frustration and determination mixing inside her. If someone was alive, they might not trust her voice. They might fear what she represented. But the signal proved she was close. She pressed deeper into the canyon, guided by the faint pulse from her scanner. The path narrowed, forcing her between high walls that blocked the stars overhead. Her light swept across the rock, revealing markings gouged into the stone. At first they looked like scratches, but then she saw patterns, crude but intentional. They were words carved by hand, letters in English worn by wind but still legible. "We survive," her throat tightened as she traced the letters. This was no accident, no natural phenomenon. Someone left a message here to be found. Her imagination swirled with images of desperate survivors carving their existence into the very bones of Mars. She could almost hear their voices in the whisper of the wind. "Find me. I'm alive." Suddenly her suit alarm beeped. Oxygen fluctuations. She checked her system, but everything read stable. Then she realized it was not her system but interference again. Something nearby was disrupting her sensors. It meant technology still running in this canyon against every expectation. Her heart beat faster as she moved forward. The passage widened and she stepped into a clearing shielded from above by overhanging rock. In the center, half buried under dust, stood an antenna, old and corroded, but still sending its faint, desperate signal. It was patched together, with metal scraps, wires twisted by hand, and even pieces of alien origin. She touched the base and felt vibration. It was alive, still clinging to power after decades. The helmet, the note, the carvings, all of it pointed. Here Alara knew then that the canyon was not abandoned. Someone had built this. Someone had survived this. And if they left the note in the helmet, then they were waiting still. She raised her head, scanning the darkness around her. For the first time since she landed, She did not feel alone. The first encounter, Ilara stood by the antenna listening to the faint hum of its signal. The dust swirled at her feet, as if the canyon itself breathed with her. Her hand brushed across the wires patched with pieces of alien metal and human scrap. It was proof of ingenuity, proof of survival. She was not chasing shadows anymore. Someone had lived here, someone had fought to stay alive against the planet that rejected life, and now she was standing in the evidence of their will. Her visor lights swept across the rock face when she froze. A shadow detached from the cliff and moved with speed. Her instincts screamed danger. She drew her sidearm, though her orders had been to never fire unless necessary. The shape darted closer, tall, thin, and cloaked in fabric woven from unfamiliar fibers. Its eyes glowed faintly, reflecting her beam. It was not human. The creature halted at the edge of the clearing, its posture wary yet aggressive, as if ready to spring. Ilara steadied her voice. "I am not here to fight. Who are you?" The creature hissed a guttural sound that carried through the comm translator. The voice that emerged was rough like stone grinding together. "Leave this place," it said in halting English. "Leave, or you join the bones beneath the sand." Her heart raced, but she held her ground. "I found this helmet," she said. "I found a note that said, 'Find me. I'm alive.' Is there a human here?" The alien tilted its head at the mention of the words, "Find me." Its glowing eyes flicked toward the antenna, and for a brief moment she caught hesitation. The translator crackled again. "You should not have come. Earth abandoned them long ago. The strong survive, the weak die. It is the way." Ilara stepped forward. Her voice sharpened. "No, that is not the way. Humans do not abandon their own. If someone survived here, I will not turn away. I will not let them remain forgotten." The alien hissed again, circling her, its movements graceful like a predator in its own hunting ground. Its limbs were longer than hers, its body lean-built for the thin gravity of Mars. It carried a weapon fashioned from stone and metal, a crude spear, but the tip glimmered with alien alloy. This was no scavenger wandering aimlessly. This was a guardian. The canyon air thickened with silence until the alien spoke again in low words. "They lived here, yes, they fought, they died, and one remains, though not as you would hope. You chase a ghost. He is no longer fully yours." Ilara's pulse hammered in her veins. "What do you mean?" she asked. The alien did not answer. Instead, it thrust its spear into the dust, leaving it standing upright before retreating into the shadows. Before vanishing, it whispered, "He waits in the deep. Follow if you dare." She stood alone again, her heart torn between fear and determination. The alien's words echoed in her head. No longer fully yours. Was the survivor altered, changed into something inhuman? She clenched her fists and looked back at the antenna. The faint pulse of its signal had not stopped. It was still calling. She marked the path deeper into the canyon and pressed on. Her lights revealed more signs of human presence. Rusted metal supports in the rock wall, bits of clothing fibers half-turned to dust, footprints fossilized in hardened sand. Every piece told a story of struggle and endurance. She felt as though she walked through a graveyard, yet also a shrine. Hours passed as she followed the twisting path. The silence was heavier, now broken only by the crunch of her boots and the distant moan of shifting stone. Then, without warning, her scanner picked up movement ahead, not one but several shapes. She raised her weapon, but held her fire. 3 smaller aliens appeared from behind boulders, watching her with wide, luminous eyes. They carried no weapons, only crude tools, and they made no move to attack. Instead, one pointed toward a cavern entrance and made a low, keening sound, almost like a warning, almost like sorrow. Ilara's breath caught. She lowered her weapon slowly and stepped past them into the cavern. The walls closed around her and the darkness swallowed her lights. She descended into the earth, following the faint traces of power cables woven with alien craft. The air grew warmer, and the hum of hidden machinery thrummed beneath her feet. At last she entered a vast chamber carved from stone, lit by dim glowing crystals mounted in strange holders. At the far side against the wall stood a sealed door covered in both human lettering and alien script. The human Words scratched roughly into the surface were unmistakable. I wait. Alara's throat tightened. She stepped closer, her hands trembling against the door. The note, the carvings, the antenna, all led here. Beyond this barrier waited the truth of Mars and the survivor who refused to die. She placed her hand on the cold surface and whispered softly, "I am here. You are not forgotten." The hidden colony Alara stood before the sealed door, the words carved into its surface, glowing faintly in the light of her suit lamp. I wait. She pressed her hand against the cold alloy, tracing the letters scratched by a human hand. Her chest tightened with a mix of fear and hope. If someone had lived long enough to write these words, then they had also built this place with the intention of being found. She searched the edges of the door, running her fingers along grooves until she found a control panel hidden beneath layers of dust. She brushed it clean and the screen flickered weakly to life, pulsing in response to her touch. The interface was crude but unmistakably human, though patched with alien symbols. Her translator strained to interpret the strange hybrid language, but the intent was clear. It was a lock sequence meant to keep intruders out. She entered a series of commands, her breath holding with every press until the door rumbled and began to slide open. The sound echoed through the cavern like thunder as stale air rushed past her, carrying the scent of rust and old machinery. Chamber beyond stretched into darkness, but lights flickered to life as if awakened from a long slumber. The glow revealed walls carved into the stone, reinforced with metal struts and layered cables. A corridor extended forward, lined with broken consoles and storage crates bearing the faded insignia of Earth's early expeditions. Alara stepped inside, her footsteps echoing softly, and for the first time she felt the weight of history pressing around her. This was no abandoned ruin. It was a colony hidden away from the world. She moved deeper into the structure, scanning everything around her. Rusted oxygen tanks lined one wall, some empty, some still faintly pressurized. She found bunks stacked in rows, their mattresses reduced to dust, but the outlines of human lives still clear. A child's drawing was pinned to the wall. Colors faded, but the image still clear. A stick-figure family holding hands beneath a red sun. Alara's throat tightened as she imagined the children who once lived here, struggling to grow up in a world of dust and silence. The further she walked, the more signs of survival she uncovered. Tools fashioned from both human alloys and alien scraps lay scattered on workbenches. A generator hummed weakly in a way, side chamber powered by something she could not identify. It had been repaired countless times using whatever parts were available, human ingenuity woven with alien remnants. This place was more than a shelter. It was proof of endurance, a testament to the refusal of life to end quietly. Her scanner beeped softly, picking up faint traces of heat further inside. She followed the signal into what must have been a command center. The room was circular, lined with screens cracked and dark, but one still glowed faintly. A journal lay open on the table, its pages yellowed but words still legible. She bent over and read the first line written in a careful hand. Day 423. We are fewer now, but we endure. She turned more pages, her eyes widening as she absorbed the story. The journal spoke of the colony's struggle after their mission was abandoned. The storms had cut them off, their communications silenced. The alien scavengers had harried them day and night, yet they built weapons, they built shelters, they even learned to bargain with some of the creatures for resources. Hope dwindled as years passed until one by one the survivors died. The last entries were written by a single hand recording. Not despair, but determination. I will remain. Alive, I will be here when Earth returns. Find me. I am alive. Alara's hands shook as she closed the journal. The note in the helmet was no random message. It was the continuation of this vow, a promise written again and again to remind whoever came that humanity does not vanish quietly. She placed the journal back and whispered softly, "You are not alone anymore." Suddenly a sound broke the silence, a clang of metal echoing through the corridor. She spun her weapon, raised heart, pounding her lights, swept across the shadows until she saw movement. A figure tall and gaunt stepping slowly into the room. Its outline was human, but its form bore the marks of something else. Its skin stretched over lean muscle scarred and patched with metallic grafts. Its eyes glimmered faintly, reflecting her beam. A human voice rasped through the silence. "Who are you, Alara?" Fro's breath caught in her throat. She lowered her weapon slowly and answered, "I am Commander Ilara Voss from Earth. I found your note." The figure staggered closer, his face gaunt but his eyes burning with life. He whispered through cracked lips, "You came, you finally came." The living ghost Ilara's breath trembled as the figure stepped into the light. His body bore the weight of decades of struggle, his skin pale under the glow of the failing lights, his frame wiry and scarred with jagged marks that spoke of countless injuries and desperate repairs. The most shocking were the metallic augmentations fused into his flesh. Plates of alien alloy reinforced his arms and legs. Wires ran beneath his skin, connecting to small devices that blinked faintly with power. Was human but altered, a living ghost shaped by survival and necessity. His voice cracked as he repeated the words, "You came." The sound was raw, filled with disbelief and relief. Ilara lowered her weapon completely and moved closer, speaking gently. "Found your helmet. I found your note. You are not forgotten." His lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. His teeth were worn, his face lined with years of endurance. Yet in his eyes burned a fire unbroken. He leaned against a console to steady himself and whispered, "My name is Draven. Once I was a colonist sent here when Earth still dreamed of taming Mars. We were told we would be the first to build a new home for humanity. We believed them. We believed Earth would not abandon." As he coughed hard, his body shaking, then steadied himself again. "They lied to us, Commander. They left us here, and when we did not die quickly enough, they erased us from history." Ilara felt her stomach twist. She had read rumors of failed colonies, dismissed as conspiracy whispers, but here stood proof that it was all true. She asked softly, "How did you survive all these years?" Draven's gaze drifted to the walls lined with alien parts and scavenged machines. "We learned to adapt. Mars killed the weak, but taught the strong. We bartered with creatures that prowled the canyon. Some gave us resources, others hunted us. I was wounded many times, but I refused to let death take me. I used what I could find, human or alien metal. It did not matter. Every scar on my body is a memory. Every machine inside me is a promise that I would endure until Earth returned." Ilara listened in silence, her heart pounding, as his words painted a picture of relentless survival. Draven continued, "At first there were dozens, then only a handful left. Each day we carved our story into the walls. Each night we swore we would not let our names vanish. But time wore us down, one by one, until I alone remained." He held up a trembling hand, metal fingers clicking, softly. "They call me a ghost now. The aliens who pass through here fear me because they know what humans can become when pushed to the edge. They do not understand that survival is in our blood." Ilara's voice broke with emotion. "You are not a ghost. You are the proof of what it means to be human." He studied her face as if weighing her words, then nodded slowly. "When I carved that note into the helmet, I knew one day someone would find it. I did not know if Earth still cared. I only knew that my promise would remain. Find me, I am alive." He turned to the console beside him and pressed a switch. Lights flared along the walls, revealing maps carved into stone, etched with both human letters and alien symbols. Draven's voice grew harder. "There is something more you must know, Commander. We were abandoned not because we failed, but because we succeeded. We adapted too well. The Alien Council watched us and saw danger. They feared what we might become if Earth learned of it. So they forced Earth to erase us from history. They made us ghosts because the truth terrified them." Ilara stared at the maps, her mind spinning. If what he said was true, then humanity's endurance on Mars was not a secret failure, but a hidden triumph. A triumph that the galaxy feared, she whispered. "Why would they fear you?" Draven's eyes glowed with iron resolve. "Because Mars is a death world and humans survived it. They fear what humans can endure. They fear what humans can become." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of revelation. Ilara felt her pulse hammering as she realized the importance of this truth. Earth needed to know. Humanity needed to know Draven was not just a survivor. He was a message written in flesh and metal, a warning to the galaxy that humans could never be erased. He looked at her with tired eyes, yet his voice carried strength. "Will you take this truth back? Commander, will you show them that I endured that? We endured." Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder and answered firmly, "Yes, Draven. The galaxy will know. Secrets buried in silence." Draven led Ilara deeper into the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the Martian surface. His steps echoed against the metal and rock walls that had been reinforced with scavenged, alien alloy. Every corner they passed told a story of desperate survival tubes of water filtration devices, makeshift greenhouses, and energy cells glowing faintly from decades of careful maintenance. His eyes scanned every shadow, every crevice as, if the tunnels themselves whispered warnings of enemies unseen, he stopped before a massive steel door engraved with markings that Ilara had never seen before. It hummed faintly, as if alive. The air felt thicker here. Draven placed his hands on the cold metal and muttered words in a language lost to time. Then the door slowly parted, revealing a chamber filled with holographic records and floating panels displaying alien schematics maps of the solar system and archives of human activity on Mars. Ilara's jaw dropped as she stepped inside. This was not just a survivor's hideout. It was a vault of forbidden knowledge. Draven motioned toward the records. "You must see this," he said. "Every piece of information the Council tried to erase, every secret about Mars, every human who survived here is stored in these archives. They thought that by hiding the truth, the galaxy could control fear. They were wrong." Ilara approached a holographic map of Mars and saw dots representing locations where humans had built colonies underground, some long abandoned, others still holding evidence of life. She traced her finger along the map and asked, "How many survived?" Draven's voice was somber. "Only a few dozen made it past the first 10 years. The rest succumbed to isolation, starvation, or the creatures that roam the canyons. But the few who endured became something more than human. Their minds sharpened their bodies, adapted, their spirits hardened. They are the true inheritors of Mars." Ilara turned to him, eyes wide. Why would the Council erase this? Draven's metallic fingers brushed over a panel showing alien fleets. The Council feared that if Earth knew the truth, humans could no longer be controlled. They feared that humans who survived a death world would inspire rebellion everywhere. Humans were dangerous not because of warships or weapons, but because of endurance, because of will, because of the unwillingness to submit. He moved to another panel and activated a hologram of alien assemblies where the voices of high-ranking aliens debated the fate of humanity, their words chilling and precise. They spoke of humans as a variable, unpredictable, a force beyond containment. Their decision was final. Earth must forget the colonies. Mars must remain a warning and a secret. Only the Council would remember and monitor. Ilara clenched her fists, her mind racing. This is insane. Draven nodded. Humans are underestimated across the galaxy. They are taught to be polite, to obey, to follow. Yet here on Mars we became the apex survivor. The Council could not allow this truth to spread. It would undermine every species' assumption that humans could be conquered. Draven turned to a smaller holographic console and touched a record labeled with his name. It flickered to life, showing images of the colonists when they first landed on Mars, full of hope and determination. Their laughter, their struggles, their deaths, all recorded here. The faces of those who had endured, etched into memory, as proof that humanity was never weak. Ilara felt tears welling in her eyes. These were people she would never meet, but she felt their courage as if it had been passed through time to her. He whispered quietly, "The note in the helmet was my last hope, that someone would find me, someone who would carry the truth to the stars, someone who would not let us be ghosts, someone who would show the galaxy that humans survive because they refuse to die." Ilara placed a hand on Draven's shoulder and said, "Softly, I will carry it. I will make sure the truth reaches Earth and beyond." Draven's eyes gleamed faintly with gratitude. Then he took a deep breath and continued. There is one more thing you must understand, Ilara. Humans are not just survivors. We are teachers, we adapt. We learn from our enemies, we take what is dangerous and make it our strength. The galaxy has underestimated this for centuries, but they will learn soon enough. The air in the chamber seemed to pulse with his words as if the walls themselves agreed humans who survived Mars were no longer just colonists. They were legends forged in fire and isolation. Their existence challenged every alien assumption about control, authority, and dominance. Ilara felt a surge of determination and fear at the same time. She realized that what Draven had preserved here was more than history. It was a weapon of truth, a beacon of human will. Draven stepped back and looked at her, his voice steady and commanding. The next step is dangerous. I must leave these tunnels and return to the surface, but know this. The Council will not allow the truth to escape easily. Every species that learns of this will try to silence us. We carry not just our lives, but the proof of human endurance. The proof that the galaxy underestimated the wrong species. Ilara nodded, gripping her equipment tightly. She understood that from this moment forward there was no turning back. They would face enemies, unseen, challenges unimaginable, yet the fire that had kept Draven alive for decades now burned within her too. The fate of humanity depended on their courage and cunning. The surface awakens. Ilara and Draven emerged from the tunnels onto the rust-red surface of Mars. The wind howled around them, carrying the scent of iron and dust. The sky glowed faintly orange from the setting sun, casting long shadows over the jagged rocks and abandoned domes. Each step felt heavier than the last because every moment above ground brought the risk of detection. They moved quickly, yet cautiously, scanning the horizon for patrols, alien drones, or any sign that the Council had already discovered their presence. Draven turned toward Ilara, his eyes cold and sharp. "They will come for us," he said. "We cannot hesitate. We must reach the hidden landing site before the Council mobilizes every ship in this sector. Their weapons are advanced, but they do not understand what humans are capable of. They rely on fear and intimidation, but they underestimate resolve. They underestimate endurance. They underestimate us." Ilara nodded, gripping the salvaged rover tightly. The memory of the colonists, the faces in the holograms, the courage that had survived decades beneath Mars surged through her veins. She pressed the accelerator and the rover leapt forward over rocks and gullies, bouncing and skidding, yet holding steady. As the Martian surface resisted their passage, dust rose behind them and the wind screamed through the canyon, as if warning them of approaching danger. Behind them, faint silhouettes appeared against the horizon. Alien ships descending with speed, faster than any human craft had achieved. They fired pulses of light that turned into deadly beams when they struck the ground, sending chunks of rock flying. Ilara ducked instinctively and shouted, "Hold on!" Draven braced himself as the rover swerved narrowly, avoiding a strike that would have torn them apart. The hum of energy weapons filled the air and the sky seemed to explode with motion and sound. Draven leaned close over the console, activating a series of signals. The hidden landing site responded with flares of light, guiding them through a labyrinth of canyons and cliffs. The ships pursued them relentlessly, but the rover was nimble, agile, designed for the unforgiving terrain of Mars. Ilara's heart pounded with fear and excitement at the same time. She realized this was not just survival anymore. It was a declaration. It was humanity announcing without words that it could not be controlled. Suddenly, the canyon opened into a wide, flat plain, where the remnants of human technology waited hidden under layers of Martian rock and camouflage shields. Massive ships built by human hands lay dormant yet ready. Their engines glowed faintly as if alive. Ilara felt awe and disbelief. They had survived. They had built. They had prepared for the moment the galaxy realized humans could not be contained. Draven activated the communication array and a beacon transmitted across the solar system. A message of survival, truth and warning that would reach Earth and every listening species. The Council's arrogance was about to meet reality, and the sound of their own misjudgment echoed in the void. Ilara looked at Draven and whispered, "We are ready." He nodded. Their eyes met a spark of understanding that went beyond words. The alien ships reached the plain there, movements coordinated, efficient, ruthless. Yet the humans did not fear. They launched countermeasures that disoriented the fleet: magnetic pulses, EMP fields, and stealth maneuvers that no alien had predicted. The ships faltered, their strategies failing. Against the unpredictability of humans who had endured death worlds, who had learned to adapt and strike with precision. They had underestimated not strength alone, but cunning, determination, and the will to survive. Ilara climbed into the command deck of the largest human ship. Draven beside her activated the controls, and the engines roared to life, lifting from the ground, as though awakening after decades of slumber. Dust and rocks spiraled around them as the vessel rose higher. The alien ships fired again, but each strike was met with calculated counters, guided by decades of human experience in survival in a world designed to kill them. They were unstoppable because they had nothing left to lose. From orbit, Earth received the signal and the message of survival. The note in the helmet, the hidden archives, the truth of Mars, all combined into a declaration that humanity was no longer just a species to be ignored or controlled. The galaxy would learn that humans endured. They adapted. They fought back, and when necessary, they struck with unstoppable precision. Ilara felt tears on her cheeks for all those who had survived, and for all those who had died. Their courage was now a force that no council could erase. As the human ships gathered into formation and prepared to leave Mars, a new era began. The galaxy trembled because the underestimated species had returned not as weaklings to be manipulated, but as survivors, leaders, warriors, and teachers. Their truth was alive, and it demanded recognition. Draven turned to Ilara and said softly, "The Council will remember this is only the beginning." Her eyes shone bright with determination. They had survived Mars, and now they would survive the galaxy. The red planet faded beneath them, but its secrets and courage carried forward. The signal burned in every listening species' mind that humans could not be contained, underestimated, or erased. Humanity was no longer hidden. It was awakened. It was unstoppable. And the galaxy would never forget. Humanity ascends. The galaxy was silent, yet trembling as human ships emerged from the shadow of Mars. Their engines left trails of light across the void, announcing a presence that had been underestimated for too long. Ilara stood on the bridge, feeling the weight of history and the pulse of destiny coursing through her veins. Every human who had survived the harshest worlds, every child who had learned to fight, every scientist, engineer, and soldier whose wisdom had been honed in silence now stood as one unstoppable force. The stars themselves seemed to witness the awakening, as if the universe recognized that humans were no longer to be treated as weak or expendable. Below the fleet, the council scrambled in their chambers, their alien faces pale with disbelief and fear. They had watched humans hide and struggle on worlds they believed were doomed, and now those same humans rose with confidence, precision, and power beyond imagination. Every strategy the council had prepared failed before the ingenuity and courage of a species they had ignored for centuries. Every calculation had overlooked human adaptability and relentless will. Every envoy they had dismissed as fragile now commanded fleets that could bend the course of wars and shake planets from orbit. Ilara's voice echoed across the bridge. "We fight not because we desire conquest, but because we fight for survival and freedom." Every species that underestimated humanity now sees the truth. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not limited. Humanity is unstoppable. Draven beside her nodded silently, their eyes meeting in a shared understanding that the galaxy had changed forever, and it could never return to the way it had been. They were the survivors, the reclaimers, the force that would define a new era. The human ships moved in unison, performing maneuvers that defied expectation. They outsmarted the Council's fleets, avoided deadly traps, and claimed orbital advantage over critical worlds. The message of resilience, courage, and intelligence spread faster than any weapon or diplomacy. Every transmission carried the undeniable truth that humans could endure the impossible and emerge stronger. Every world that had doubted humanity now paused, in awe, recognizing the power that had been quietly growing beneath the surface. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of a species that had mastered survival beyond imagination. Alara looked out through the massive observation window as the red surface of Mars receded behind them. Dust storms and craters reflected the struggle and sacrifice that had shaped every human who had lived there. Every helmet, every note, every hidden base had led to this moment. A species that was underestimated, now commanded attention, respect, and fear. Not for cruelty, but for the promise that survival demanded respect. Humans did not seek to dominate the galaxy for greed, but for justice and balance, and every act of courage now became legend, whispered in every corner of space. The Council sent envoys pleading negotiation and surrender, but the humans acted with measured restraint and unyielding strength. Every decision weighed with precision, every action deliberate, yet unstoppable. The message was clear to all. Watching humanity had returned to claim its place in the cosmos, not as subjects, not as slaves, but as equals, whose courage, determination, and intellect demanded recognition. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating the rise of a species that refused to be broken. Alara turned to her crew and said softly, "We survived every test, every trial, every impossible world, and now the galaxy knows we are alive. We will continue to survive, to explore, to protect, and to teach that underestimating humans comes at a cost." They nodded silently, their faces proud and determined. They were the legacy of every human who had dared to endure, who had refused to give up, who had trusted that one day survival would become victory. And so humanity rose from Mars to the stars, their presence unstoppable, their courage undeniable, and their truth echoing across the cosmos. The galaxy would remember the species that endured against all odds, and the message was clear that from this day forward, humanity would never be underestimated again. The universe had witnessed resilience, unmatched strategy, uncompromised courage, and the power of a species awakened to its full potential. The end.